Hello everybody, we're back for part 2 of my video series, Liberation of Hyrule, Insanity's End. And this time you'll get to see me do Fortress 2 in its entirety. Yes, you heard that right, Fortress 2 in its entirety. I actually get Fortress 2 done before I do Fortress 1. You could actually do them in any order you want, but this is why I decided, so there you go. As you can see, this is the first battle right here. It's just a regular one-hitted Gleelock with a little gimmick with traps. You just gotta be careful with the traps. You want to always set them off so that they move slowly back into position so that when you're walking around, you don't get murdered. This dungeon is, half of it is what you would expect if you have played the first game or watched my video playthrough. But the first half of this dungeon is like a boss rush, which is entirely new to the Liberation of Hyrule series. And what I mean by boss rush is you'll see me go through a series of difficult battles, and when I succeed in these difficult battles, I win a heart container piece. And I really like that idea. I think a lot of these battles that you'll be seeing later up are very well done, in my opinion. One thing I want to warn you about, when I was recording this game, I didn't do this all in one recording, obviously, and during certain cuts of the video, the music was at different volumes, and I don't think, with my limited knowledge on editing videos and just not having much motivation to fixing everything, the music is going to be at different levels throughout certain points in this video, so just be warned about that. Well, you just saw me defeat the first two blocks, and now you get to see the fun battles, in my opinion. This one coming up is probably the hardest one of the bunch. It is a Fire Wizard, and what makes this battle isn't necessarily fighting a Fire Wizard without getting hit with a wooden sword with no sword beam. No, actually, that's not too bad, because if you know where to stand when the Fire Wizard does his fire attack, his fire will actually go through you. What's the hard part of this battle are the traps. You want to always set them off so that they move at a slow rate, trying to reposition themselves. Because if you don't, and you try to run away from the Fire Wizard, you're just going to get murdered. One thing that you may notice, look in the left-hand corner and you'll see a life bar. This is something that James added through scripting, and I think it is a nice little touch. You'll see this often during these kinds of battles. So, there isn't too much more to say about this room. I really like Final Fantasy VI boss music. In my personal opinion, I think Final Fantasy VI, it has my favorite soundtrack of all the Final Fantasy games. Even 7. I like 6 is better than 7. So, that's all I can say about this room. Just to get ahead of myself, speaking of the life bar, James also added another little neat feature through scripting. I get hit by temporarily sword disabling and item disabling bubbles, jinxes, and you'll see a little bar on the right that quickly diminishes, and it lets me know how long I have before I can use my sword or item again. You'll see that in this room. And this room is a Goya 3 with the fast walk tiles. I love the fast walk tiles. Unfortunately, they're scripted. So I'm sure that you can probably download they might be in the scripting database. But it's a really cool idea. But if you don't know how to script, and you have to learn how to script, or at least learn how to download scripts to utilize that in your quest. But anyways, back on topic. The next room is a Cracto Rock, and pretty much. You just have to be calm and remain under control. It's real easy to panic in this room. Probably the only time I see this room being BS is if the conveyor belt is going toward the Octorok and he's about to fire. You can get unlucky and die there, but other than that, that room is pretty well designed. I love the changing conveyor belts, and that's not going to be the first time, the last time you see those things. Well, now you get to see 3 more battles. And this room actually killed me the first time I entered it just because of the sheer shock factor of it. But after that, my second time, this room isn't so bad. It's just to be like a real tiny space. I've always find it interesting how you can walk on the Rod's back and not get hurt. Just like in level 1, how I was able to walk on top of Aquamentus's body without getting hurt. You know, it just makes me think that the original Legend of Zelda didn't intend for the players to walk on the enemy, so they didn't feel the need to make a hitbox for those things. So that battle's over, not much to say about that, but it was a pretty interesting room. And this next room coming up is something you should all be too familiar with. This room is a recycled room from the first game. This was actually used in Fortress Room 1. What makes this one harder is instead of having 3 hearts by this point, you only have 2 hearts by this point, so... It's been a while since I've played or watched the first game, so correct me if I'm wrong on that. I don't remember if the battle was any different from the first game, but regardless, that battle was over. That one went quite smoothly. And this next battle is something borrowed, well, not borrowed, pretty much recycled from the first game, is the Splitting Dark Nut. And Liberation of Hyrule, James used the enemy editor tool to make it so that the Splitting Dark Nuts do not split, so they're just Super Dark Nuts, Dark Nut level 3 or whatever you want to call them. This room is different from the first game because the first game did not have the Zoras shooting at you. So if you're not careful, the Zoras fireballs can hurt you and dwindle you down. So that's just a little extra caution. It's not too hard, but it is something to keep in mind. So now that that battle's over, it's time to go get the Triforce. Yay! Fortress 2 already? Well, not really. You know, if I wanted during that very first segment of this game, I could have went straight to the first Triforce, but decided not to. So, but the other Triforces in the other dungeons, for the later dungeons, are placed later. Well, a couple of them are placed at the end of the dungeon. So, regardless, I did comment about that Triforce room. I liked that conveyor belt Triforce room. I think it's a cool idea. I actually want to see that myself. Now we are going through another series of boss rooms. As you notice, the pattern here. The first one was a gimmick. The second one was a two-headed Gleelock gimmick. What the gimmick is for this room? You only have 2 hearts. That's the gimmick. Oh, I'm too funny. Fighting Gleelocks aren't too bad if you know that their fireballs always fire at a consistent rate. The rate of fire is always predictable. So if you have that knowledge, then they're not too bad to deal with. However, when their heads come off, I don't think there's a real pattern to where their heads fly off, and I don't think there's a pattern to which head fires which fireball. Correct me if I'm wrong on that. So, can you guess what this next battle is going to be? I'll give you $100 if you guess right. Well, I probably wouldn't honor that bet anyways, because there's no real way to prove that you were wrong and I was right. But this is a BS Patra. This is, in my opinion, the hardest room in this dungeon. At least I had a really hard time in this room. And I'm gonna be straight up honest. I would rather fight a big circle Patra in this room than a BS Patra. And the reason why is the little swarms outside of the BS Patra, they're so huge. And it's real easy for Link to get hits with the outer ring of the BS Patra. But what really makes this room main are those fireballs, the shooting statues. You gotta be really cautious of those, and if you're not, those fireballs will just come out and get you. When fighting Patras, the ideal positioning is the opposite of where he's at right now. You want him to be in the upper left-hand corner because when Link is facing up and when he's facing left, his sword has a longer reach versus facing to the right or facing down. If you have to face right or down and fight a Patra, you have to get dangerously close to the Patra before you hit him. Whereas if you're facing left or up, you can still stay at a safe distance and still get attacks in. So that's that. You almost saw me get killed here, and I've actually gotten this far and died here before. It's a lot of fun. But you just have to be patient, and it's not too terribly bad. So I think this is the last part where I actually record myself going back to the beginning of the dungeon. I think there may be one or two more times. Then throughout the rest of the game, whenever I successfully beat a hard part or get to a checkpoint, I just cut the video and start a video at that previous spot, so not to watch the boring segments of me walking back to the beginning of the dungeon again. So this next part is watching me avoid some enemies to get the bait, and I always liked how the bait was utilized in this game. I thought James did a really good job with incorporating its usage. I actually believe that the bait is one of the most powerful items in the game, given the right circumstances. I do understand there are enemies like Wizroads, Darknets, Stalfoses, and a lot of custom enemies may not have a hunger factor, but I really appreciate it when a quest designer designs a quest to where you put a room full of enemies that half of them are attracted to the bait and the other half aren't, and you can control the room by putting the bait down and have the beast enemies go for the bait and kill off the other enemies that are not attracted to the bait. I feel it just utilizes Link's items better when the room is set up that way, and I really do like it when you have to utilize Link's items to win a battle. I find that fun gameplay design. This little battle I thought was really well done. The trick to this room is I am standing in between tiles instead of completely on a tile. If you notice, I'm able to hit to give those in both rows instead of just one row. It really helps me control the battle a lot better, because if I didn't do this, then it would be a lot easier for the give those to overwhelm me when it becomes ice. This room, as you can see, switches from fast walk tiles to ice tiles. And this isn't the last room that you see this. You'll see rooms like these quite often. But just about every one of these rooms I felt was well made, and I liked the battle aspect of it. So, good job, James. This room was very fun. This battle is almost over, and I will claim my prize of roast beef. Hey, would you rather call it bait or roast beef? I know I'd rather call it roast beef. Maybe I'm a little hungry, maybe not. I'll let you decide. But anyways, that part's over. And you get to see me walk to the beginning of the dungeon again. And fall asleep because this part is rather boring to watch. But I didn't feel like editing it out, so there you go. Now you get to see me approach the next section of the level, and for those of you who have played Liberation of Hyrule, the first game, this room was a roadblock and a stopping point for many people. And now you get to do it again, but instead of having 4 hearts here, you only get 2 hearts here, so in a way this is actually harder than the first game. Because I had completed the first game before, this room didn't give me very much trouble, whereas when I first played this room actually gave me quite a bit of trouble. For those of you who really want to pay close attention to detail, there's an extra armos in this room, and it's on the lower left-hand corner of this room. But I digress. We are almost done with this room. You'll see me make a mistake right here. What I should have done was, before just running out there and getting hit, I should have actually peeked over to the right so that I wouldn't have to run as, so that Link would have a smaller distance to travel before avoiding that trap. But we are about to hit the next room, and I want to make a point in this room. James is very well known for being a very brutal game designer. His quests, both of these games are very unfair and pretty much top-notch difficulty, but here's an instance where I actually feel that James isn't quite as brutal as some people might think. In my opinion, this room could have been done without you healing at all, and I almost feel that room to the right is unnecessary because I have the bait. I just lure the Goyas there and totally waste them. And even if I hadn't have healed myself, I would have still have been alive. I heal myself because I'd rather play on the side of caution. And I think anyone would agree with that. This next series of rooms is a series of rooms where I only have my B items, and I have to stun enemies with my boomerang, or kill enemies with my boomerang, and use my 1 candle shot, kill them with 1 foul blow, and yeah. You notice how the rupees are moving there? That is a little... You would have noticed it in past videos as well, but I don't know the mechanics of scripting, so I can't explain to you why it does that, but I pretty much figured that is a glitch in that script, that the fast walk tiles causes the items to move in the direction that Link is moving. Spoiler alert, the Triforce in Fortress 1 actually utilizes that mechanic in a very clever way. This room right here, it's not hard, I just find this room irritating because the Jinx moves randomly and he'll randomly touch you and you go, ah, that's so annoying. And if you lose your cool, then you'll get hit by the wall master. This room is definitely unfair, and this is by far the hardest room in the segment. If you, I would prefer this room to not have the slow walk tiles, but I do understand that this is supposed to be an unfair quest. So that's all I have to say about this room, that room. And this room is actually quite easy. And the trick for this room, and the trick for fighting any kind of bat or geese, is to stay in the very top part of the room. And the reason why is because when you're at the top part of the room, the only hitbox available for the keys and bats to hit are the bottom part of Link. Whereas if you're standing at any other part of the room, the whole square of Link is available for the keys to hits, not just the bottom part. This room is interesting. Well, it's not too interesting, but you know, if you use the script where when you kill all the Armos, the door opens, and I don't think you can do that without scripting. So that was pretty cool. That's pretty cool. Kind of tricks your Zelda classic senses. This room is pretty much the same as the other room, as in the first game. You have a bunch of turtle enemies, and if you don't kill them real fast, they will turn into their big selves, and you have to go back in and reset the room. Now, I didn't get very many of them this time, as you'll see, but I decided that I'm just gonna stun them with my boomerang and wait for all these guys to hang out and have a little powwow together. You can technically do this with all 10 enemies in the room, but it is a lot easier to manage when there's significantly less enemies. When there's a lot more enemies, you run the risk of having enemies break free of the boomerang shot, and then you will have to start all over again. That's not fun. Anyways, this guy doesn't wait too long, which I'm happy. He just goes straight there, and then I say, hey, we can't have a powwow without a campfire. Merry Christmas! And then they all went to hell. So, there you go. This next room, as you notice, is a larger version of that TLoH block puzzle battle from the first dungeon. And this one is a lot easier. And as you can see why, you just stun these guys with a boomerang. But you can't just simply stun these guys with a boomerang and use your candle. You have to do one extra step. Move that block up there to trap them, and then you use your candle, and then they all sing Kumbaya. This next room, regardless, even if you had full hit points, I always recommend going up to the center, pay a little bit of money, and go back down. Because if you start in the center part of the room, you're right next to the bat. Whereas if you start off on the side, you have to walk all the way to the bat, which makes that battle a lot harder. So, now that that part's over, let's move on to the next part of the dungeon. And the final little segment is I have to go reactivate my sword so that I can go to the final part of this dungeon. So right now all I can do is avoid these guys. I like the little boomerang life bar right there. That's a very nice touch. This room, pretty much the exact same as the first room. You actually have a lot more room in this one. The first game, you were actually in a lot smaller space. The trick for this one is to lure the enemies that are attracted to the bait to one side of the room and go to a completely different side of the room, stun the enemies that are not attracted to the bait with the boomerang. Then when all 4 of them are trapped, you place your bait right next to them to lure the bait attracted enemies there, and when they're all together, you remind them that it's important to cook your food instead of eating raw meat, otherwise you might get salmonella poisoning. And I don't know about you, salmonella poisoning does not sound like fun. Diarrhea is very disgusting, and yeah. On topic, I got another one of those little potions. That's something I don't think I explained earlier. Those are little items that cure you of your jinxes. And you'll see both item and sword variation for your curing pleasure. This room can get pretty intense because of the nature of the enemy. These guys are super fast, and I'm gonna be honest, I'd rather fight Death Knights than Crackdow Knights. well, not Cracktonites, Cracktorots. You gotta be real careful when you're stunning an enemy with Boomerang and killing him, because if your sprite is on top of the enemy sprite as you kill them, the enemy sprite's hitbox will hurt you. And for those enemies, that means instant death. You don't want that. So there's another room like this in the first Liberation Hyrule, but this time instead of there's fire Octoroks added. So when you're about to kill him, you want to kill him with the fire so you can stay at a safe distance, or you're gonna die from fire, and that's not fun. This room, you know, when I played the demo of this game, I had a really hard time with this room, and then when I played the full version, this only took me like 2 tries to do. I do know the trick behind it. You just want to stay behind the blocks and attack these guys from a safe distance. However, I do feel there is a little more luck in this room than I care for, because if these guys surround you or just move in the wrong way, there really isn't much you can do. If you use your sword, you can have you see how their bodies blink, and when their bodies are blinking, you can walk right through them safely. But if there's a lot of them on top of each other and they're surrounding you, that's virtually impossible. So again, this battle is pretty cool, but at the same time, there probably is a little bit more luck factor than I care for. But yeah, that's my commentary on that part. This battle is going to be over pretty soon. And one thing about this is when you get so far in this battles like these, yes, they do become easier because there's less enemies, but at the same moment, your adrenaline rush starts pumping and you don't want to mess up. And so I was playing it extra safe because I didn't want to die here, but the enemy decided that he wanted to play it safe too, so this battle got prolonged a little bit longer than I care for. But nevertheless, it's gonna end pretty soon, and then you'll get to see the final part of this dungeon. So that's over. I go get the boss key. Bada bing, bada boom. I'm cool now. And I go unlock this little door right there and reset. Stop recording, record a new section. And I have to give up my bait. Farewell, but I get the bow in return. Can you guess who I'm going to fight next? You probably guessed right, but I have to walk through them like that. I actually got lucky there. That's just like the first game, but unlike the first game, you have to fight them on these changing conveyor belts. I think this battle is pretty cool. It's kind of I call it a battle puzzle. Military strategy I think is how James termed it, which I really like those type of puzzle battles. Well, anyways, this dungeon is 100% done, and you'll never see me go back to Fortress 2 ever again. The next video, you'll see me finish Fortress 1, and then we'll move on with the rest of the game. So I hope you enjoyed, and you have a nice day. Peace out. Deuces.